Coal burning for energy production is dirty, causes pollution. Nuclear power plants are some of the cleanest energy producers. However, they are not free from problems. Once the fuel has been used, it can't just be thrown away. Most of in the United States, power plants keep the nuclear waste stored on their site. However, in Europe, there's a different solution. It's nuclear waste reprocessing. I will be sharing with you what nuclear waste reprocessing is, what happens with waste that is just left on the site, and some of the benefits of nuclear waste reprocessing. To begin, I will explain to you the process. Some people fear the transportation of the nuclear waste. They think like terrorists are going to get it, but it's really well protected. It's transported in special casks that keep the radiation at low levels. According to Stanford.edu, it's transported using heavily armed guards. It's first escorted to a ship that has cannons on it, just in case they get attacked by pirates. They use a crane to put the cask in the ship. Then they remove the crane, and they weld the door to the room shut, so no one can get in. And they transport it to the reprocessing plant. There, at the reprocessing center, the waste can go through a number of reprocessing techniques, but I will describe to you nitric acid dipping. The waste is broken up into its elements. It's then dipped into nitric acid, and then uranium is turned into fuel pellets, and plutonium is combined with the uranium to create MOX. The MOX and the fuel rods are then returned to the nuclear power plant where they came from to be used again. What happens to the waste that is not reprocessed? According to globalsecurity.org, about 120 tons of fuel is produced, waste is produced. It just ends up being stored on site in the United States since they don't reprocess it here. Only about 3% of the fuel is actually spent up in nuclear power plants. That leaves 97% with the potential of being reprocessed to be used again. What would reprocessing help with? According to BBC.com, it would save 100,000 barrels of oil by reprocessing waste. It would help conserve their uranium, which is estimated to have 175 years worth. After the reprocessing, each 6-gram pellet holds an energy equivalent to 1 ton of coal, and the 3 6-gram pellets can supply the energy for a family for a year. I have shown you what nuclear reprocessing is, how much energy is spent, what happens to the waste, and the benefits of reprocessed fuel. Nuclear waste should not sit on site. It should not be stored to become someone else's problem. Instead, it should be reprocessed to be used again.
Right, Ricardo, what did you think?
I like the opening that he told what he was going to talk about, and I like the facts that he came up with, and I think it'll better eye contact for this side of the room, and a little bit more energy, and
Okay. All right. The contrast that you have between coal and nukes at the beginning is okay. I think there's probably a way to make that contrast a little bit more interesting, a little bit more emotionally involving, but it sets up the subject that you're talking about, which is important. I do think that you're a little vague as to exactly what your objective for us is at the beginning of the speech. Now, at the end of the speech, it's very clear that you're an advocate of reprocessing and you think that we ought to be doing it, and I think that that needs to be just as clear at the beginning of the speech. The big, the so-called elephant in the room that everybody is ignoring here is why it is the U.S. fails to do the reprocessing. You talk about how they do it in Europe, and you describe what the procedure is and what the potential benefits are, and the closest I get to any notion that the U.S. is resistant to doing it for a particular reason might be this terrorism claim that you're talking about. I don't know that that's the U.S. objection, but to me it seems like this is a technological process that is the epitome of recycling and getting higher efficiency out of the energy resource, and it ought to be something that people are doing, at least from the way you've described it, except that there's obviously something else that's going on here, and I just feel like there's been something that's left out of the argument as a consequence. I did think that you had some good information about the energy potential, the amount of oil that we save, and how long it might extend our uranium supply. I thought that that was good information in the speech. I do think you could do a little bit more on some emotional appeals on those issues. The presentation points, you could use a little bit more energy. There was nothing that was problematic with it, but it isn't as involving as it could be. I thought that you were looking at your notes quite a bit, but you did look up at the audience, and again, there's plenty of room for improvement. So you've got a subject that I think works well for this kind of speech. You've got a point of view that's very clear by the end of the speech, and you've got some good information. Maybe a little bit more development in a couple of spots, especially, like I said, when you were advocating a policy, we need to consider, well, what are the disadvantages, what are the implications, and the only one that you really talk about at all is terrorism, and I'm not sure that that's the main issue that prevents the U.S. from doing the reprocessing issues. All right, thank you very much.